thank you. And that leads me to my next question. That I know it's something that people could know, but I just want to hear from you that what is the danger of not listening to the science now? Because for decades, the IPCC have been bringing up reports, different reports. So what is the danger of not listening to the science and the benefits of listening to the science?
Well, when you listen to the science, you are warned, and somebody who is warned can act to prevent damage before it takes place. So if you read this particular report just released, you know that if we continue on the present course, if we continue to emit massive amounts of CO2 and other greenhouse gases, climate change will only become more severe and have more widespread and more severe consequences, both for humans and ecosystems. So the benefit to listen to the science and to act much more on that basis is very clear, actually.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. So for just to add, just like to complement what you've just had, that for every degrees of warming, what will the impact look like onward, like from now henceforth? Because we have been seeing extreme weather around the world. So for every degrees of warming, what is the take?
Well, it's things are not black and white in the climate system. It's an increase that's progressive, and it doesn't increase by step. You don't have so many impacts up to 1 degree and then nothing happens until you have 2 degrees and then another level of impacts. No, it's a continuum. You have increasing intensity of some of the most extreme events. For example, tropical cyclones, for example. We know that the severity, the intensity of winds and also very intense precipitation, which creates many floods usually in tropical cyclones, will increase even more for +2 degrees C above the pre-industrial than for 1.5 degrees C, for example. We know that the area covered by droughts in dry areas or covered by very intense rain events will increase as well. But it's a continuum, and we shouldn't actually wait until we reach 1.5 or 2 degrees to decide to stop the emissions. We need to try to avoid checking that the warnings given in this report become reality.
Okay, so I'm also curious about the fact that in some countries or some continents, they are faced with climate events, and some with climate events and processes at the same time. Is there a science behind this?
Well, the climate system with the injection of so much CO2 and other greenhouse gas is actually a little bit like as if it was on steroids. It's acting more violently. There is more energy in the system. So for example, we know that for each degree C, the air can contain 7% more water vapor, which means that as the warming continues, the quantity of water that can fall at the time of precipitation events can be 7% higher. I mean, this is a basic law of physics, by the way. It's something that's well known. And we certainly don't want to test levels of precipitation associated to several degrees of warming, because that would be really terrible.
Oh, okay. Because what I was asking is the fact that Madagascar is faced with drought, and to some region they are faced with floods, and two, it's just unevenly distributed like that. That was why I asked that question, to see maybe there's a science behind, okay, this region faced with drought, floods, and all, because I'm trying to make it on make the science to be more simpler, for people to be able to comprehend. Since we don't have climate education in our curriculum yet, so that people get to understand what is this science behind why we have to have drought, and another country is filled with floods, different weather events, different weather processes happening in different countries, even within the same continent.
That's basically because, there's a general move, because the Earth is rotating. There's a general movement of zones of high pressure and low pressure, and as they move, when there's an area of low pressure, it typically leads to precipitation events and rain, and when there's a high of high pressure, it leads rather to higher temperature and very often droughts. So as the zones of high and low pressure tend to move across the surface of the planet, you can have at different moments in time very different situations. And actually, each of those situations, whether the hotter situation and the wetter situation or colder situation, each of them can, to a certain extent, be made more intense by the climate disruption. So when the zone moves above, when, for example, the wet zone moves above a particular region, that wet zone can deliver an amount of rain which, because of the climate disruption, is much higher than before, than usual. But when that zone has moved further away, maybe there will be a dry zone with a high pressure, which can deliver much more heat and evaporation, leading to drought at the surface than usual. So you can have indeed in the same region at large, at some points, more droughts, and at some other points, more intense rain leading to floods. It's a bit paradoxical, but that's the way it is, unfortunately.
Thank you. That was what I was trying to get, So when people could listen to it, they just grab that understanding that this is the science behind it, as you have just explained. Thank you so much. So I want to ask the last message, like the last question, what is your message to world leaders, to the people, to businesses? What is your message to them?
I would say listen to science. I mean, it's the message that you are carrying so well, and that Greta Thunberg is carrying as well. Read the IPCC report and act on them. Be aware that to a large extent, the future of the inhabitability of our planet is still in our hands. So we can, particularly if we act in a coordinated way together, we can transform the world into a better world, and we can make sure that the climate remains inhabitable for present and future generations. It's possible.
Thank you so much. So what is your message to the climate movement, to the climate justice movement? Like, do you want us to improve more on it, or do you feel is okay the way we are going? Like, what is your take?
Oh, I would please, okay, very simple message is please continue. I mean,
okay.
I think what you're doing is very useful, because it puts policymakers on the spot and citizens on the spot, and puts economic actors in front of their responsibilities, and it's only together, being more aware, than that we can change what needs to be changed. And so many things need to be changed that the pressure from the climate justice and the climate youth movement needs to be maintained. Otherwise, things are not going to change quickly enough.
Thank you so much. You have really contributed a lot. You have brought this simplicity in science, which I really love about it, because it's going to help the African to also be able to understand the science, because many people in the grassroots, they don't understand, they don't even know if there's even a report on Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Yeah. And that was why I have to invite you, for people to get to understand what this science is all about. They should to simplify it to their own understanding. That's why I don't want us to use big grammars, because I know it could be a lot for them. And I'm also thinking that, also talking about the climate education, that it's very important part of us to understand the science better. It wouldn't stress us. It will make people to join the movement for climate justice more, because I got to understand it when I graduated from higher institution. When I came across the report, there have been different reports that have been produced since 90. That was 1960, right?
The first report was 1990.
1990, thank you. So it have started right from that time, and I don't get to read about it, and I don't even know anything about it. Not until recently, the 2018 report that got to that was just like an eye-opener for me to join the movement for climate justice. So if we could have more of this, in our curriculum, it will help us to see the reality, for us to understand where the scientists, for us to see that the climate scientists are not lying. They are not the prophet of doom. They are trying to help us to get to know what is happening, so that we could take the necessary action. So I really want to thank you and your team for the amazing work you have been doing, to bring science to our doors, to bring this issue clearer.
You're most welcome. Thank you for your work as well, because it's very important to spread the information in the best manner.
Thank you so much.